What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another NBA rundown, courtesy of Run Pure Bets and Run Pure Sports. Speaking of Run Pure, I'm with the man who was running pure this weekend, Hoop. I know you're feeling good. Do you want to tell everyone how the weekend went for you and the rest of the Run Pure team?
Yeah, I mean, going into yesterday, I was live in the Millie on DK. They had the $4,000 Millie maker. I was in third place going into it. The guy in first place had a very solid team, so I knew it would take a lot to catch him. But I ended up finishing in third for 100,000. But the dreams of the Millie were alive going into the fourth round. Really, that's all you can ask for. Didn't get the job done, but still a solid weekend for sure.
Well, maybe I have low standards, but to me, a six-figure hit is still running pure. So, congratulations and thank you for joining me today. And I'm sure everybody watching appreciates it too. So, we know the work doesn't stop. So let's jump straight into the NBA. The first game on the schedule, high-profile markets. We'll see how the game turns out. Los Angeles Lakers travel to New York to take on the Knicks. The Lakers are 33 and 20, 26 and 27 against the spread. The New York Knicks 27 and 27, 33 and 21 against the spread. The Lakers are coming off a 25-point win over the Nets, and the Knicks are coming off two close wins. They squeaked one out against Memphis and Toronto. I was on them both games. Both games they gave me a heart attack. What do you expect from the New York Knicks tonight, and how do you think they match up with the Los Angeles Lakers?
Oh, it's definitely a tough game to kind of break down as it stands now. I mean, there's quite a few guys questionable for the Lakers. I mean, Kuzma, Gasol, Wesley Matthews. I mean, those aren't game-changing guys, but if a guy like Kuzma sat, obviously it would be a benefit to the Knicks. Lakers coming off that big win against the Nets. This game, I guess I'd probably lean the Knicks here if I was going to bet it. I'd probably lean the Knicks and probably the over. I mean, I know both these teams have been playing in some low scoring affairs, but 206 in this day and age of the NBA it's a low number. So I mean, I'm going to lean probably the over. Now, in terms of fantasy stuff here, the Knicks early on in the year were a team that we were targeting a ton because their guys were playing so many minutes. Night in and night out. Well, the problem is now they have a lot of bodies, and we're not seeing those same rotations where these guys were approaching 40 minutes in regular season games early on in the year. It's just not really the case anymore. Now the prices have adjusted a little bit. Elf Payton on DK is all the way down to like 4.1K. I don't think I can go there. 206. I mean, 206 total is just not great for fantasy purposes. So, definitely going to be off the Knicks. On the Lakers side, I mean, we need that injury news. If they're going to be thin, then yeah, we can take a look at some of these guys. Andre Drummond here, the new addition, they just haven't given him the minutes. I mean, he's been there fantasy-wise. He's been able to have productive games, 38, 37 fantasy points, 26, 22 minutes, maybe more of like a tournament-type play tonight. But, this is not going to be a golden spot for DFS purposes because of that 206 total, just very low and unappealing.
All right. Yeah, just to give you a quick breakdown from my perspective here, I also agree with you on taking the Knicks here. This line opened at 3.5 last night. It's dropped down to -2, and that's a market move. It's not based on news at all, right? So the market believes in the Lakers here. And I think that that's an overreaction off the win against the Brooklyn Nets, who's a team that we've seen doesn't care unless it's going against top competition,
Yeah.
right? So I get the buy high there, and then also the Knicks are on a back-to-back, right? The Knicks have won 3 out of 4 on their last 4 back-to-backs. Now, granted, while I give that out, let me tell you, 2 of those against for Detroit, and 1 of them were against Houston. Okay,
Yeah.
but what it's showing me is that they do show up. I can't expect a good performance from them tonight, so I like the Knicks here too. Normally, you know me, I like to target these low unders, but I think they made a mistake here. I think this one should have been around 211, right? I mean, let's just look. The Los Angeles Lakers average 110 points per game. The Knicks average 105. I know these are slower paced offenses, but still, it's too much. It's too low.
Yeah.
I have it at like 210, 211, so I'm with you there on the over. So hate to be square, but I like the favorite and the over in the first game. Now let's go to the next game. I think this game is fascinating. It's the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 36 and 17, heading to Dallas to take on the Mavericks, 29 and 23. It'll be the last game for Philly on a 4-game road trip. And remember, their next game is against the Nets. I don't know if it's a look-ahead spot, though, because Dallas is such a high-profile team. Not exactly sure what to make of it. Did not make a move on this game yet. What do you think? It's definitely a high-profile game that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, high-profile game for sure. I mean, my initial thoughts here, Dallas is a team. I mean, maybe I'll be proven wrong. So I just don't think they're very good. It just is so dependent on what Luka does. The secondary pieces here, I think, just aren't all that good. And Porzingis, I believe these guys are questionable. Porzingis is questionable.
Porzingis questionable every night?
Yeah, basically every night. I'm not saying all that much. I'm sure he's going to be out there and playing. But I'm going to go with the 76ers here. I like them to beat Dallas. I think they do get up for this game. Like you said, it is a high-profile opponent. You get to go up against Luka. I think they have the defenders to kind of slow down Luka. Yes, I mean, by slowing down Luka, Luka he's phenomenal. So like I said, I think they can do enough to slow him down a little bit. I'm going to lean the 76ers here. No strong lean on that total. In terms of fantasy, 76ers are kind of a tough team for fantasy purposes. They just have a lot of different guys that can contribute from a fantasy perspective. So probably won't be coming here in this game. The only exception would be if Porzingis is ruled out, then maybe we might take a look at a guy like Luka tonight, but I don't think you have to go there. And like I said in the opening, these secondary pieces for the Mavericks have been so hit or miss all season long. No consistency. You really don't need to look to these guys for fantasy. So this just really isn't all that good of a fantasy game.
Oh, yeah, so I have a question for you. So when I'm analyzing this game, right, assuming that I get the best effort from Philadelphia, I like them too. And my main reason is I'm like, who's going to stop Joel Embiid, right? I mean, like, I think put Willie Cauley-Stein out there. Like, Porzingis has no chance. But he's not on your target as a spend-up, huh?
Embiid?
Yeah.
The problem is the minutes. Like, he's just not playing a ton of minutes.
Because of the injuries, so they dialed him back a little bit.
I just really think they're going to ease him, kind of have him coast the rest of the regular season. I mean, they're in the number 1 seed right now in the Eastern Conference. I just don't think they're going to push him at all. Yes, he can go off in 28, 29 minutes, but when you're paying the price for these guys, you really want them out there 35, 36 minutes. I just don't think he's going to be playing that many minutes, moving forward. So that's the one reason that probably won't be looking to him.
Okay, excellent. Definitely clear that up. Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets, 36 and 17, 25 and 28 against the spread, heading to Minnesota to take on the Timberwolves, who are now 14 and 40, 23 and 30 against the spread, because Minnesota most recently beat Chicago. Well, I mean, I can't wait to talk to you about Chicago. But for this game, the Nets are coming off that really bad loss to the Lakers. I think that we're going to get no Harden. Kyrie's out again, right? I mean, he's off burning incense somewhere. So it's going to be KD and the rest of the guys. No LaMarcus Aldridge either. I'll tell you what. I mean, obviously the numbers are going to tell you to take Brooklyn here, but Brooklyn doesn't care when they don't play the best teams. And I even think that we saw that on Sunday against the Lakers, or on Saturday night against the Lakers. I wasn't too eager to get involved in this game. I want to hear how you break it down. Maybe I'm missing like a profitable angle that I should be looking at. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know what you do here from a betting perspective. I mean, like you said, who the hell knows? Kyrie's out. Obviously, Harden's still out. Durant hasn't played more than let's see. I think he played 18 minutes and he played 24 minutes. How much is he going to play? Is this just a throwaway game for the Nets? I mean, who knows? I wouldn't touch this game from a betting perspective. If I was going to bet anything, it would probably be the over. But for fantasy purposes, this is going to be a spot we're going to go to for sure, specifically on the net side. Now, projecting the minutes for Kevin Durant is the hardest thing. I mean, there's no way he's going to come out here and play 36 minutes. So we know that he's still going to be somewhat limited tonight. Maybe he gets up to I'd say the most he plays is probably 32 minutes tonight. So that means we're going to be looking at a lot of these other pieces in this game. Chris Chiozza, very solid option. Bruce Brown, Nicholas Claxton, 3.1K. He's been very, very productive when he's been given an opportunity to play. So we're going to be loading up on the Nets here in fantasy. 3 to 4 guys are going to be in play. And you want the cheap guys for the most part. Now, maybe we get some clarification on Durant's minutes here. Like I said, I don't think there's any way he plays more than 32. Now, from the Minnesota side, this is I think a pretty good spot for them too, fantasy wise, because you're going up against this decimated Nets team, and we just don't know really what their motivation is. It could be an easy path here for some of these Timberwolves guys. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, he's cheap. He's been playing very well, very productive lately. Looking at last couple games, played 37 minutes, 43 minutes. 29 minutes. I think he's interesting if he continues to get that sort of run. Now, the production hasn't fully been there, but if he's going to play that sort of minutes against a decimated team, I don't hate him. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is a really good spend on the slate. We've been finally seeing some solid production from him. Very, very consistent. I mean, he hasn't been under 53 fantasy points in 10 games or something like that. So I think he's a very safe option tonight. The minutes are very stable with him. The main thing here is we're going to be loading up on the Nets guys, and they provide very good value for this slate, very safe value. They just happen to draw the best possible matchup here against the Timberwolves.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see Hardwood live tonight on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel and see who we actually identify for that value, because I'm going to be able to make some lineups today, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think that was a pretty good breakdown. If you guys enjoyed that breakdown, please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and head on over to runpurebets.com to see everything we have to offer. Let's go down to the San Antonio Spurs. For a Popovich team, they're not very consistent this year. Usually I like the Spurs because I know what I'm going to get every night. I don't feel that way with this team right now. And the results have been all over the place with them. They're taking on the Orlando Magic, who is someone I had kind of targeted as being undervalued here for the rest of the season. And that's kind of hit or miss. You got to really pick your spots with them. They're losing every game, but they're covering about 50% of the games since they made the trade. San Antonio's coming off that nice win over Dallas, right, which I didn't expect at all. I thought Dallas was going to roll. Fortunately, I didn't bet it. I just, that was my lean, and I leaned wrong. So it shows you, the importance of choosing selectively. And Orlando's coming off a close to 40-point loss against Milwaukee. Now they're getting 6.5 at home. And on the injury report, it looks like Trey Lyles, Georgie Dang are out. Okake's questionable. Kareem Maine questionable. Robert Franks, who I don't know who that is in. No Otto Porter. He's doubtful. And Gary Harris is questionable. What do you make of this game? And are you with me that we just completely pass on it and just two inconsistent teams?
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs, like you said, in the past, a team that we've been able to count on for some consistency, just not the case anymore. This number seems pretty accurate. I mean, 6.5, that's probably right where I would have put it myself. For fantasy purposes, though, I've been on here and we've talked about the Spurs many times. They're just not a great team for fantasy. It just the inconsistency. Not only have the results in the game been inconsistent, like you alluded to with Popovich, but for fantasy purposes, been very inconsistent too. We've seen some monster games from DeJounte Murray this season. We've seen some huge games from DeMar DeRozan. But, for every 2 of those games, we've seen some huge busts from these guys. Just a tough team for fantasy purposes. There's no need to go here on the slate. We just talked about a game where we have a ton of really good options in the Nets and Timberwolves. No need to take a risk here with these Spurs guys. We've on the Hardwood show, we've talked about it all season long. They're just not a great fantasy team unless there's 3 or 4 injuries or guys resting. Then we look them up tonight. That's just not the case. On the Orlando side, we've seen some really big games from Wendell Carter Jr. since the trade. Kind of cooled off a little bit. He had 3 straight 40-point games. The last 3 have been under 30. The minutes have kind of trickled off for some reason, which I don't get, down to 23, 25, 27 minutes. The last 3 was playing in the 30s. You just don't know what you're going to get from any of these guys, really. This is not a great spot. I think Carter would be the one guy I'd look to, but that'd be more so in tournaments than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a rough year for Orlando, right? I mean, they waived Kem Birch to essentially the front office is telling Steve Clifford, the Orlando coach, you need to play Mo Bamba, right? Because Kem
Yeah.
Birch was better. He was taking the minutes. So they trade him. So Bamba and Carter are going to get all the center minutes, and then Bamba gets hurt. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of sums up the year for the Orlando Magic in general. Now, I think this game is going to be a game that you guys are going to have a lot of interest in fantasy-wise, so I can't wait to see who you guys target. It's the Sacramento Kings, who are the kings of no defense, and they're heading to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans, who, boy, we talk about inconsistency. I think this is really the poster child for inconsistency. New Orleans laying 2.5 on a total of 236.5. I like the Pelicans here. I do not trust the Kings at all. This team just, I mean, I don't really know what I'm going to get from every night. Let's look at their game logs. They have not won a game. Their last win was on March 29th in San Antonio by 17. Since then, they've lost to San Antonio, lost to the Lakers, lost to the Bucks, lost to the Timberwolves, lost to the Pistons, and then lost to the Jazz. So this is a team that just can't get it done right now. I like the Pelicans more than the Kings here, and I think they're going to be able to punish them inside. I don't see how the Kings stop Zion. But what do you think about this game? Do you like the over? Do you like players? How are we attacking this game?
Yeah, I'm in full lockstep with you. Like when I pulled up this slate, I kind of dove through it a little bit before we hopped on here, and the Pelicans were the one that stood out the most. Like it just doesn't seem like an accurate number. Like 2.5. They should, to me, it should be. I know you have your model and stuff. I don't have a model. I use the eye test, and I think it should be like 5 or 6. It just 2.5 just seems way too light for me. I mean, this Kings team, they're on the road. They played no defense at all. And like the Pelicans team, like they have guys that can abuse you if you don't play solid defense. I mean, Zion should just absolutely have his way. Now, the problem for fantasy purposes is the price is up there, 9.7K. But I think he can have a monster game here. Brandon Ingram as well. He came back from the injuries, playing normal minutes, 35, 36 minutes, got up to 45 fantasy points last time out. These guys should just have their way in this matchup. I really like the Pelicans here to roll. Now, on the Kings side, fantasy-wise, the prices just aren't all that good. Like De'Aaron Fox, he's 9.3. I mean, that's a big boy price tag. Now, if you can play, De'Aaron Fox for 9.3 or Zion for 9.7, I'm playing Zion every day of the week. So I definitely like the Pelican side a little bit more. I think there's what's the injury news on Lonzo's out, right? I thought there was someone
So
else.
what I've got is Lonzo questionable. James Nunnally started
Okay,
because they needed more wing depth, so they waived one of their backup bigs,
yeah.
and that's all I see now. Of course, Alexander Walker's out.
Yeah.
It's weird how they don't put the people who are out like long term, and then you have to go to ESPN. So where are the other two?
Yeah.
Alexander Walker were out, and one other. Oh, Josh Hart.
Yeah. So like the prices just aren't all that good in this game. I mean, it's a really nice game when you look at it, 236.5. Like that's a big total. You want exposure to it. The prices just aren't great. My favorite would be Zion, though, for sure. Zion's definitely guy. But then I want to know who's starting because with the Pelicans, it's typically the starters are the ones that get this run. So if for some reason this Kira Lewis Jr., if he were to start, I'd really like him.
Yeah.
Right now they're projecting Najee Marshall to start. He had a really good game last time he started. He played 31 minutes, 34 fantasy points. So this game is an hour and a half after lock. We might not have the news at lock, but I want to know who's starting for Lonzo because that's the guy that's typically been productive.
All right. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards, who are 19-33, 26-26 against the spread, heading to Utah to take on the Jazz, who are 40-13, 33-19 in spread against the spread. Hoop, did you know that the Jazz are going for their 25th straight home win?
It's impressive.
They've just been machines at home.
It's impressive. It's crazy. I mean, it's so crazy when you look at it because it's been the case over the years with Utah. They've always, even when they haven't been great as a team, they're always good at home.
Yeah.
And now they're playing phenomenal basketball. 25 straight home wins. That is so impressive.
How do we approach this game though with the 11.5 spread? That was enough to scare me off, especially against the Wizards team. I mean, I don't know. We're waiting on the news on Beal, right? I mean, that's huge. And Jordan Clarkson, right?
Yeah, I thought thought Beal's probable, so it sounds like he's gonna play. But
Okay.
yeah, the number does scare me just because the fact that we've talked about it a lot on here. These Wizards, I mean, they've just shown up for games against some of these better teams.
Hmm.
I don't feel comfortable taking them plus 11.5 here in Utah, but if I was going to bet it, it would be that side of it.
Yeah.
For fantasy purposes, though, we get a really good spot here with the Utah Jazz because they're going to be without Mike Conley and also without Jordan Clarkson. So that makes Donovan Mitchell a very strong play. That makes Joe Ingles a very strong play. Bogdanovich is only 4.9K on DK. He's a strong play. O'Neal, even Gobert. You can play, all five of those guys are in play. That would be where I would focus. And then you got a situation where you could run it back as well because we've seen Russell Westbrook have these monster games. If this game stays close, I think Westbrook has a monster game, and now the matchup with Utah is going to scare a lot of people away. A lot of people will not play him because, oh, wait, going up against the Utah Jazz, they know they're a good defensive-minded team. But, if I was going to play three of these Jazz guys in tournaments, I love pairing it with Russell Westbrook, who I think could go a little under-owned because of the matchup here with the Jazz.
All right. It sounds like a plan there. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts just on this team in general and, of course, on the game. But Chicago Bulls 22-30, 28-23 against the spread. Heading to Memphis to take on the Grizzlies 26-25, 30-20 against the spread. Now the Bulls kind of went all in, right? Said we're going to try and win now. Added Vukovic. Hasn't looked that good so far. What do you think about the trade, the impact, and what do we expect from the Bulls going forward? And of course, give me your thoughts on the game. But to me, I'm not even sure what to make of the Bulls for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird with the Bulls. It's actually really weird. So they bring in Vucevic, and you'd think, okay, that's going to really take away from a guy like Zach LaVine. Well, Zach LaVine has been absolutely going off,
Yeah.
but it hasn't worked from a game-winning standpoint. LaVine has gone over 50 fantasy points in 3 straight games. Now he's doing a lot of that early on in the season. Then they hit a lull, and now he's back to like crushing Vucevic. Just been ho-hum. I mean, he's been moving along, but hasn't done anything all that impressive. I mean, the one big game last week, I don't know what to make of this team. Like, moving forward, to be honest with you, I know these secondary pieces are going to be very tough to trust with LaVine and Vucevic in there. Thaddeus Young was a guy that had some nice games for a while. Well, he's kind of back to, just mediocre type performances. To answer your question, I don't know. I have no idea. Like it's a very tough read. I think from a fantasy perspective, these guys are interesting in tournaments because we know they do have upside. LaVine obviously has shown it the last 3 games. In terms of this game, though, overall, it just seems like a toss-up to me. I mean, 2.5 point spread. Memphis is favored. I don't know. I have no idea. On the Memphis side, John Moran is a guy that I've been targeting in tournaments. I think you can continue to do so. He's one guy that has a nice price tag. I mean, he's basically at the lowest price tag we've seen all season, 6.8K. He's been over 36 fantasy points in 3 straight games. The minutes are finally starting to round back, so he would be my favorite play from this game fantasy-wise. I think you can play him in all formats, cash games or tournaments. But from a betting perspective, I really don't have a strong lean here. Do you at all?
I mean, I lean Memphis, but not enough to play it because I don't know what I'm going to get from Chicago. My main takeaway from this is before Chicago was vulnerable to bigger teams when they ran Wendell Carter in the junior, right? And they can match to the small lineups better, right? And the real big guys like, going against Philly or Los Angeles would just crush them. Now I feel like they're more vulnerable to the small ball style lineups. With Vukovic out there, so it's kind of weird how they kind of traded their weaknesses. And now, of course, they were supposed to get more offense, but it just really hasn't seemed to work out. This is also a Chicago team that I think out of anyone that's kind of trying to make the step from doormat or lottery to a winning team has really struggled with learning how to win. I think that Chicago's blown more games. Now, of course, this is completely subjective, but than any other team this year, and they really have problems finishing games. That's another reason why I would lean Memphis here. But at the same time, we've already identified a couple other games that we like a lot more. So I don't necessarily feel the need to get involved. But if you're watching the show and you're making a parlay on every game, go ahead and take Memphis there.
Just seems like a weird spot for the Bulls to kind of go all in. Like they kind of went all in at the trade deadline, and I don't know, just it kind of seemed like weird timing. Like, why were they so adamant to make the move now when they really weren't even all that close? Who knows?
I agree with you too. And the funny thing was they were signaling the other way. The GM had kind of said like, "Hey, there's not going to be many sellers this year. Maybe it's a
Yeah,
good year to be a seller." And then they turn around and they're a buyer. The other thing
yeah,
is it's the GM's first year. He should have some sort of grace period, right? Like you're not expected to come in and win your first season. Like usually when you get a new GM, you're allowed to tank, acquire some
yeah,
assets and then build the team your way. I'm actually surprised as well. Maybe they just assumed that it would just be too good to pass up. I did kind of like the trade. I think for two,
yeah.
assuming they
No,
got good, you're getting too late first for a nice All Star for 3 to 4 years.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just so tough to see what they're doing in Chicago. And boy, when you make a move like that and it doesn't work out, like if they lose in the play, and I mean, it's just going to be. I don't know
yep,
where they go from here, so we'll see. The next game, the Houston Rockets, 14-39, 17-36 against the spread. Head on to Phoenix to take on the Suns, 37-15, 34-18 against the spread. Phoenix lane 12. Phoenix has won 11 of their last 13 games. They've won 7 in a row at home. Devin Booker's had 21 in his last 7 outings. So, and this is so tough because these numbers aren't always accurate. But I think Phoenix has the best record with double-digit spreads this year. Of course, it's weird because you go to opener and closer, right? So sometimes they cover the opener and not the closer
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. But I think they're 8-1 in double-digit spreads so far this year. I like Phoenix here. Houston's on complete tank mode, and even looking at the injuries, I mean they're missing Sterling Brown, David Nwaba, Daniel House, Dante Exum, Eric Gordon. I mean it's just this team isn't trying to win. I like Phoenix to blow them away. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we just had this game, I believe, a week or two ago, and
Yeah.
it was a close game. I mean, Houston somehow rallied and kept it close. I like that for this game. I like the Suns. I think the Suns blow them out. I am fully with you on that. Like the fact that this game was close before, I think is going to scare some people off from a betting perspective. I think Phoenix just absolutely rolls through them here. I really like the spot for Phoenix. Typically stay away from these bigger spreads. This is one, though, where I'll make an exception. I'll be on Phoenix.
All right.
DFS wise, though, this is not a spot where you want to be. I mean, with the Rockets, if when John Wall's out, we can look to like Christian Wood and some of these other guys. If there's it sounds like all these guys are going to play, and it's just not a great spot against Phoenix. Phoenix, it's going to be the same thing I say on here every time. They're just not a good team for DFS. They're kind of a good defensive team. They have a lot of different bodies. They'll grind out ugly victories if they have to. They're just not a team you want to target for DFS purposes. If I was going to go anywhere, though, it would be DeAndre Ayton, 6.9K. Finally starting to see some consistency in his game. He's been all over the map from a fantasy production standpoint this season. But in the last 4 games, he's been over 35 fantasy points. If he continues on that trend, 6.9K is a good price tag for him. Not like a building block type guy, but it's, if you have a spot left and you have 7K left and he fits in there, I'd be totally fine playing a guy like him.
All right. Before we go to the last game of the night, guys, if you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Final game of the night, Denver Nuggets, 34-19, 26-27 against the spread. Head to the Bay Area to take on the Golden State Warriors, who were 25-28, 24-29 against the spread. Denver's laying 4.5. The total's 226. Jamal Murray, is he out again? He's missed 4 games in a row.
Questionable. I mean, I'd assume that he sits, but he's officially questionable.
All right, and then on the Warriors side, Wiseman is out for the year. It's so funny when I read the national stories like, "Oh, the Warriors are without Wiseman." Well, you guys haven't been watching the Warriors.
Yeah,
They've been terrible with Wiseman in here, and it's
yeah,
been a tough balancing act for Steve Kerr all year. The development of your number 2 pick, obviously you have a lot invested in, and actually trying to win the games when Pascal and Looney were giving you better minutes. So now he doesn't have that anymore. I don't think the loss of Wiseman hurts. In fact, it actually does help. Kelly Oubre, of course, being out, I think hurts. even though he's been so inconsistent on the offensive end, it does give him another nice wing defender. Um, and even with Murray missing those games, Denver's like 7-1 since Aaron
Yeah,
Gordon joined. I would lay the 4.5 here. It's not one of my favorite spots here, but I'm not going to back Golden State for the rest of the year. I personally think, even though they're not saying it, Golden State doesn't even want to make the playoffs.
I'm
I
with you.
think that they'd rather be a lottery, right, and get another talented player because they're championship or bust. They're not like the Bulls or the Kings where their fan bases are desperate for that playoff appearance. So, what do you think, and who are you targeting in DFS?
The Warriors know they know that even if they get in, they're not making a run. With this roster, there's no chance that they can make a run. I love the Nuggets here. I think the Nuggets after that trade deadline, I think the Aaron Gordon trade was phenomenal. To me, I think they're the team to beat in the West. To me, 4.5 is just not enough. You look at this Warriors roster. Yes, they have Steph. Yes, they have Draymond Green. I mean, the rest of these guys, though, I mean, just not all that impressive. I really like the Nuggets here to roll, whether or not Jamal Murray plays. I mean, Murray is not a needle mover at all. Like, this team is just as good with him off the court as on the court. Yes, he can have those big games where he gets hot and goes off, but they're totally capable without him, and they have more than enough bodies to fill that void. So give me the Nuggets here from a fantasy perspective. Jokic is probably the only guy on the Nuggets that you can really consider. Maybe Michael Porter Jr. Porter Jr. has been playing really well since that trade. You look at it, the minutes are up, and the production he hasn't been under 35 fantasy points in 5 games. So maybe I'll take a harder look at him.
And that's the extra usage with Murray out, right?
Yeah,
now he slides to the number 2 option.
Yeah. So assuming Murray is out, I mean, maybe Michael Porter. I mean, the price is up there. $7K is not a price we typically pay for him, so it might scare some people away. But he's playing some phenomenal basketball. On the Warriors side, no, Kelly Oubre makes Kent Bazemore a strong play. Bazemore started and played 32 minutes and produced right around 30 fantasy points, and that's more than enough for his price tag. So I think he's a very strong option tonight. You can play Steph Curry in tournaments. I'd probably try to play him and Jokic together if you're going to go that route. Draymond Green, 6.7K, not a terrible price tag, but we really have not seen steady production from him lately. Only 1 game over 32 fantasy points in the last 4. So I'd probably be looking to Jokic, like I said, maybe Porter Jr., definitely Kent Bazemore, and then potentially Stephen Curry in tournaments.
All right, I want to thank my guy HTP from the Run Pure Bets team. He's putting down some numbers here to support my assertion. Steph and Draymond have a plus 12.1 net rating in minutes without James Wiseman. They're minus 7.7 with him. So thank you, HTP. I was just kind of going off what I see, and I had seen those numbers, but they gave me these specific numbers. So I appreciate the help there. Landa thinks that Draymond has to play 35 tonight. So pretty good breakdown there. I appreciate it yet. And Gregory Russo has a question. Is it time for the best bets? It is. Hoop, side, total, or prop? What's your best bet for the day?
Yeah, best bet. We talked about this game, and I think we both felt very strongly about this. It's going to be the Pelicans minus the 2.5. I just think that number is just out of whack. Like I said, I think it should be maybe 3 to 4 points higher than that. Pelicans, not the greatest team, but they get this dream matchup against the Kings at home. Kings play no defense. Pelicans should absolutely have their way in this game. So give me the Pels minus the 2.5.
All right, I'm in lockstep with you there. And before I give out my best bet, is there a new promo code there for the Run Pure Sports team, guys?
We have the promo going right now for basically if you get the DFS plus bets package. So if you get the DFS, the monthly combo pack, if you use the promo code Get Bets, you get the bets portion for free for 1 month. So you pick a monthly package that includes DFS and the bets. Use the promo code Get Bets. The bets portion is free for the first month.
All right, I love it. That way you can get access to everything. You'll get access to Hoops cores, Big T's cores, JSU's cores, the K-Phallic charts, everything you need. You'll have access to the final countdown with JSU. And, of course, as a member of the Bets team, you'll have access to all of the Keg live shows. I mean, the guy did it again yesterday. I wasn't even watching NASCAR. I just get the notification on my Discord, walk over, place the Truex bet, go back to what I was doing, barbecuing, lifting weights with my buddies. Got some cash. it was wonderful. So you definitely want to take advantage of this offer. If you're betting anything more than $5 a game, it's definitely going to be worth it for you to increase your ROI with the picks, and most importantly, the information and the discourse you get in the Discord. Speaking of which, I will be putting these plays in the Discord when we are done. My best bet, I'm going to go ahead and fade the Houston Rockets. I rarely take big spreads, so that's how much I really like this one. I'm laying the 12.5 here. I like the Suns to absolutely blow this tanking team away. I don't think it's going to be fun to watch, but it'll be fun if we have money on it, and they're winning by 25 and 30. So, Hoop, after a big win yesterday, man, I appreciate you joining me today. I wasn't sure because I knew you had a lot of well-deserved celebration to take care of yesterday, so I appreciate you hanging out. You got anything else before we get out of here?
Hey, if I hit the millie, it might have been a different story, but it didn't hit the millie. I'm here. Love doing these shows. It's a nice early breakdown of the slate, kind of gets your mind right for everything. So, glad to be here, and hopefully we can keep producing these winners.
Yeah, we've been doing great so far, so hopefully we keep it up. Thanks again for joining me, Hoop. You'll be back on Thursday, hopefully, or do you have a lot of baseball that day?
I got to check that baseball schedule, but
all right.
Hopefully
we might have Hoop back, but if not, I have Tyler on Thursdays for sure. Tomorrow will be Mangone and JSU. I think Wednesday will be JSU. Thursday, we're not sure. Maybe some Hoop, maybe some Title, but some Tyler for sure. And then back on Friday with Tyler and AP. So it's going to be an exciting week of NBA basketball. We'll keep the winners coming.